Today on Upfront, growing calls for Congress to skip its summer break. Next, why a Wisconsin Republican congressman says the House should work through its August recess. Then the governor tries to break the state's highway budget impasse. Are the Assembly and Senate any closer to a deal? Plus, the Racine County ironworker who wants to trade jobs with House Speaker Paul Ryan.
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Up Front with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Up Front. Members of Congress will return to Washington this week after being home for the 4th of July holiday. Their longer August recess is just around the corner. But this year, there are growing calls from Republicans who control both the House and Senate to cancel all or part of the August recess to stay in Washington and work on important issues. That includes health care reform in the Senate and a budget in the House. Wisconsin freshman Congressman Mike Gallagher is one of those calling on Congress to work through the August recess. And he joins us now from our Green Bay affiliate, WBAY-TV. Congressman, it's good to have you back on the program. And first of all, let's ask why you think that Congress should stay in Washington and continue to work.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. You just look at the scope and the scale of challenges we face, both at home and abroad. And I think it would be unwise for us to take a month off without having tackled those head on. I know I'm new to this business. I know I'm only 9 months into the job right now, but I just think, essentially we should be locked on the House floor until we get some things done. That's what I hear from my constituents here in Northeast Wisconsin more than anything else, is we want you guys to work together to get things done. And I don't think Congress should go into recess until we do that. And we should work as hard as possible, get some things done, and then let the results speak for themselves.
What do you think are the chances of the recess either being completely canceled or partially canceled?
Quite honestly, I don't know. I've heard some suggestions that it will be at least modified. Maybe we'll work 2 weeks out of the 4 in the month of August. And I understand that we have to come back to the district. There's nothing I enjoy more than interacting with people here in Northeast Wisconsin. I learn a ton every day. But again, what I think my constituents want me to do is to stay in D.C. until we tackle the big issues. As we in the Marine Corps would say, you ride to the sound of the guns and you don't come home until you accomplish the mission.
Let's talk about that. You mentioned that you're a Marine and you also serve on the House Armed Services Committee and the Homeland Security Committee. So a couple of national security questions. I want to begin by talking about Russia and the meddling in the 2016 election. Your background is in intelligence. You commanded intelligence teams in places like Iraq. Are we taking what Russia did in the last election seriously enough?
Well, I think now, with the appointment of Mueller as special prosecutor, special investigator, we'll get a thorough and honest account of the details. We also have ongoing investigations in the House and Senate, and I think that's the best thing for the health of our republic. I think getting all the facts out there, and I say that for the most ardent defenders of the president who think there's absolutely no evidence of collusion, and indeed we haven't seen any so far. So if you have that viewpoint, why would you not want all the facts to be out there and let the truth set you free? And as an intelligence officer and as someone who spent most of his professional life serving in uniform, I think when a foreign power seeks to undermine our democracy, seeks to stoke division within our democracy, seeks to force us to question the pillars of our democracy, that's something we should take incredibly seriously. We need to stand up to Putin's aggression. He's a thug and he's a bully, and he's not going to stop until we put some steel in front of him. And that's why, as a member of the Armed Services Committee, I'm proud that we took a vote last week to begin the process of reversing the damages to our military that we've done through defense sequester, which, to quote Secretary Mattis, has done more damage to our military than any enemy in the field could have hoped to do. We need to reverse that. We need to rebuild the military, and providing for the common defense is the first and foremost function of the federal government.
Congressman, what should we do about North Korea? We saw the North Koreans test an intercontinental ballistic missile in recent days. What's the proper strategy for the United States given the threat North Korea poses?
I think the first thing to do is to recognize that the previous strategy, which isn't just the strategy of strategic patience in the last administration, which was an excuse for doing nothing and kicking the can down the field, but really for the last 2 decades, for about 24 years now, has failed. Time and again, we thought we've agreed to something with North Korea, only to have them renege on that agreement later. And so we must recognize the way in which our dialogue has failed, and we must urgently impose as much pressure as we possibly can. I think we can tighten the existing sanctions regime. I think we need to consider, now that we know that the Chinese are not cooperating, secondary sanctions against Chinese businesses, and at the same time we tighten the economic pressure. We need to keep every military option on the table, and we need to be working in close cooperation with our allies, and we need to invest in our own missile defense, which we did in the NDAA that we passed last week in Congress.
I want to spend our remaining time on the health care bill. The Senate still has to vote on this. The House and you were in the majority, voting for the repeal of Obamacare and the replacement of it. What kind of feedback are you getting since your vote? Are you comfortable running, if you need to, on the vote that you took in favor of the House repeal bill?
Well, I'm comfortable that we at least voted to advance the discussion and the debate, because I think if people were being honest on the other side of the aisle, on both sides of the aisle, they would recognize that whatever we're doing right now with our healthcare system is not working. You asked about feedback. Well, yes, there are people that are concerned about the direction of healthcare in this country, but for every person that expresses concern about the Republican bill, whether it's the House bill or the Senate bill that they're still changing right now, I hear people, hardworking families in Northeast Wisconsin, that come up to me and say, Obamacare just is not working for me. Average family premiums have gone up by $3,000. It's unsustainable. Healthcare inflation is out of control. We're spending 18% of our GDP on healthcare when the average among industrialized countries is closer to 8%. I will admit this is the biggest source of frustration for me as a new member of Congress. We're having this debate over health insurance reform when really we need to turn to the drivers of healthcare costs in this country. I have a bipartisan bill on price transparency. I think getting transparency in pricing, tackling rising drug care costs, other real drivers of healthcare costs are issues that both sides can work together on. And I hope we do more of that in the future, because until we tackle that, it's going to be very difficult to control healthcare costs.
There still seems to be some question in the Senate about whether they can pass a measure. If Republicans do not pass legislation that repeals and replaces, what will be the reaction from your Republican supporters who expected you to do that?
Well, I'm certain there'll be frustration, but I don't think it's the end of the effort. Perhaps I just refuse to accept defeat on an issue as critical as healthcare, when we know we have a crisis in this country where, again, if either side were being honest, they would recognize there is no silver bullet solution to healthcare that is going to emerge from a bureaucratic office in Washington, D.C. At the end of the day, not only do we need more transparency, not only do we need more competition, not only do we need to restore the free market, but we need to have the humility to recognize that states are often the best places to experiment with different delivery systems that work for us. This was the reason that Barack Obama came to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and gave his first healthcare speech at Southwest High School, where my brother went to high school, and said if healthcare, to the effect of if healthcare was delivered in the rest of the country like it is in Green Bay, we wouldn't have to do healthcare reform. Well, the problem is the Affordable Care Act was trying to impose a one-size-fits-all solution onto our delivery system in Wisconsin. It's just not working. And I don't mean that as an ideological statement. I mean that as an empirical statement. So if my friends on the left have ideas that they want to bring to the debate, better ideas, I'm more than willing to entertain them. But we can't just be talking past to each other. We can't just be demonizing the other side. We have to find a way to address the healthcare crisis in this country.
Mike Gallagher, the Republican congressman from the 8th Congressional District. It's good to have you on the program. Thanks very much for being with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Coming up next on Up Front, a possible deal to break the impasse over the state transportation budget. And later, the Racine County iron worker hoping to spark a grassroots effort to unseat House Speaker Paul Ryan.
Up Front with Mike Goucher, brought to you by the American Transmission Company and the Wisconsin Corn Growers Association.